Sat Sri Akal to everyone. We are back again after almost a 1 month break. Yeah, we ended the previous episode with the death of Chandu. It was about Vaisakhi, and it was about how Vaisakhi actually doesn't begin in April 1699. It actually began about 100 years before that, during the time of Guru Arjan Dev Ji. So we have already concluded that, and I did have a well-wisher contact me and say, Virji, can you please, you ended very abruptly, and could you please continue a little bit more? I did feel, as I mentioned in my previous, it was not necessary to continue to great length. Because the rest of the history is known to everybody. The Shidi of Guru Tegh Bahadur, I think already mentioned all this. And then we end up with Vaisakhi itself, 1699, Guru Gobind Singh Ji being forced by circumstances to set up a military establishment within the Sikh Dharma. Now, if I may just touch on the previous to highlight something. Maybe, okay, I want you to appreciate Chandu's, the nature of his death. He died in, look at the circumstances in which he died. What did he do to Guru Arjan Dev Ji? He made Guru Arjan Dev Ji sit on the Tatitavi, and then he got the people who were torturing him to pour hot sand on Guru Arjan Dev Ji's head with a huge karcha. I think you've seen all those paintings where the sand was heated in huge urns. Kwaliyan de vich onu garam karke rete nu te o reta was poured over Guru Arjan Dev Ji. Now look at the circumstances of Chandu's own death. It was the man who was selling grams, roasted grams, ਚਣੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਭੁੰਨਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਉਹ ਬੰਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਬਾਜ਼ਾਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਖੜਾ ਸੀਗਾ, when he saw Chandu, what does he do? He grabs this hot sand that he has, which he is using to roast his gram, his chane and his everything, dal and whatever, and that is the same hot sand he throws at Chandu's face. Look at the similarity. How he died, what he did to Guru Arjan Dev Ji. And then, as you know, the man actually beat him to death with that same karcha. Chandu was beaten to death on the streets of Lahore, and this is after 15 days that he had been crawling around begging for food, and without any shelter, without any help or support from anyone. The entire population of Lahore rejected this man, who at one time was the finance minister of India, had so much of power and so much of authority that he became drunken with it, and how he abused that power to try to get advantage for himself. So that is where that ends. I just wanted to draw the similarity. Look at the karma, what he did to Guru Arjan Dev Ji. He had to face it himself. It came upon him directly and exactly the same mitti, the same karcha, the same everything, and that was his payback. Now let's move on to another thing that I might want to highlight here, and this is very, very, very important, because the next episode that I'm about to start is going to refer a lot to this. You see, I'm going to talk about dawn of a new era. Dawn, I think you will remember one of my previous episodes when Guru Hargobind Sahib put on the two Siri Sahibs during his coronation ceremony. Dawn of a new era. Now, I want you to recall, what did he say to Baba Buddha Ji? Because when the Masand brought the seli, and the seli is like a little mala which they put around the neck, and it was probably part of a ceremony of those days. And Guru Hargobind has said, ਹੁਣ ਸੇਲੀ ਪਾਉਣ ਦਾ time ਨਹੀਂ. Now is no longer the time to put on selis. I am going to put on gatras and I'm going to wear swords. And he shook the whole Sikh nation. It may be a small nation in infancy at that time, but he shook the whole nation. The whole of Amritsar, Lahore, everywhere, wherever Sikhi was, it was shaken up. People were confused. People were having doubts about this new Guru. What is he doing? He's sitting on a takhat. Nobody ever sat on a takhat. Our Gurus, they were fakir. They were peer. So the word piri comes from there. But the word miri was introduced by Guru Hargobind. Now miri, where does this word miri come from? Miri is from the word mir. You know mir? Amir, wealthy, royal. Amir, you know Middle East, you know Arab countries, in those parts of the world, all the royalty are called Amir. Sharjah has an Amir, Kuwait has an Amir, Dubai has an Amir. So this word Amir, and until today, this is a name. This has become a name. Amir is a person who is of royalty, can be earthly royalty or divine royalty. What to say? Miya Mir. See, the man who has the divine wealth. So this word miri comes from mir. Okay, and then Guru Hargobind, he formalized this relationship between miri and piri. And look at how he did it. And when did he do it? When there was a need to change. When there was a need to change, our Guru taught us how to change. And to change without courage, to change with wisdom, with foresight, with understanding. So, what is the lesson to be learned from Guru Hargobind? That change is possible in the Panth. When a time calls for it, when it is necessary to act, the Panth must adjust and the Panth can change. So this is the very, very huge lesson which we must learn, even though it rocked the whole Sikh community of that time, including Baba Buddha Ji, the same man who had given the blessing that to Mata Pani, that you will have a son who will rock the world. He will crush all this opposition and transform this country, this land of Bharat, the land of Hindustan. So even that man, when he was actually confronted with the situation, was in doubt. He had to ask Guru Maharaj twice. First, why a sword? What is a sword doing in the darbar? This is a place of holiness, place of divinity. And then when Guru Maharaj explained that this is now no longer time for Seli, this is time to change, to modernize, to adapt with a new calling, a new situation. Remember these words that I am using now very, very well, because these words are going to reappear again and again and again in the next few serials that I am going to record, because the next few serials are going to be very, very critical for your understanding. For everyone over the entire Panth needs to understand a few things, because this entire Panth has stagnated. Hundreds of years have gone by of change, but this Panth has not changed. So this Panth is in a state of stagnation. We will talk about this stagnation, why there is no growth, why there is no prospect for growth. All doors seem to have been shut. There's no question of growth. Forget about it. There's no question of growth. In our present circumstances, this Sikhi is going to be locked into the Punjab and among the Punjabis, and all doors have been shut to everyone else. So this is going to be the target of my conversations over the next few sessions. They are going to be very, very tough. Every one of you will require a lot of stamina and a very, very open mind, because all of us You should, this is Sukhdev Singh talking today in 2020. You should have heard me talking in 1980. I was exactly the person who today I am going to say is a person who needs to rethink Sikhi. When I first took my Amrit, you know, when people take their Amrit, too much of enthusiasm, a little bit of extremism, a little bit of fanaticism, everything will come in. So, but that with age and with bit of wisdom and Guru's blessing, we start to see the world in different light. The reality out there, in its grandness, in its grandeur, in its greatness. Not that khuda dadu, you know, the khuda dadu that prevents any kind of progress. So we will be looking into all that. Before we go there, I want to share with you two things. The first thing that I want to share with you is this is a book, a little handbook that I created for Sikhs with a Mission. As you can see, it says April 2009. It was produced in 2009. Because basically, as I told you, I started my Sikhi in the late 70s, and then for the first 10 years, I was very, very, the institutionalized Sikhi. By the early 90s, I started to question a lot of things. I have always been known to be a non-conformist and a person who questions things, and a person who wonders why change is not possible. Why can't we change this? Why can't we improve this? Why can't we make it more hospitable? Sikhis to be more hospitable, to be more welcoming, to be more warm and loving and caring. Why aren't we opening doors to introduce Sikhi? But I've always had those challenges with people around me. Usually it's minor little things, but it has always been like that. So this one goes back, and of course this was put to a stop very, very quickly. But I want to share with you something. It is something that this man, Bertrand Russell is a British philosopher. I think you can probably, I don't know what does the text say. Okay, the following file on Bertrand Russell has been, okay. Now, Bertrand Russell is the man who died in 1970. That's important. Okay, he died in 1970. He's a British philosopher, renowned British philosopher and free thinker. Okay, after studying, I'm going to read from here now. Okay, after studying the 4 major religions of the world, he rejected them outright. They all had faults. They all had stuff in there that could not be accounted for. Okay, he rejected all of them outright and exposed their shortcomings. Okay, but even this great man got stuck when it came to Sikhi. In fact, when he could not find a single point to criticize, to comment on Sikhi, he gave up. And he sent this message. He wrote this message. If some lucky men survive the onslaught, it says there. Okay? You can see it there. I'll read the rest to you. If some lucky men survive the onslaught of the Third World War, of atomic and hydrogen bombs, then the Sikh religion will be the only means of leading humanity forward, of saving humanity, of holding humanity together. These are his words. Don't forget, he died in 1970. So these words were uttered more than 50 years ago. Sikhism will be the only religion that will be a means of guiding humanity. Today we are 50 years later. What have we done about what Bertrand Russell said or anyone has said? Okay, let me read a bit more. Okay, Russell was then asked. Okay, somebody asked him then, okay, if Sikhi is capable of saving humanity and leading humanity after the Third World War, why isn't it possible to prevent the Third World War? Why can't, isn't this religion, question, isn't this religion capable of guiding mankind before the Third World War so that we do not end up with the Third World War? And this is his answer. Listen to his answer. Listen to his answer. Okay? Next page. In reply, Russell said, yes, it certainly has the capability, but the Sikhs have not brought it out into the daylight. You know Ramale? You know, our Sikhi is still under the Ramale. I'm going to let you listen to a recording by a Mahapurush, a Sant. After this, I'm going to record a few recordings which I want you to listen to. Now, I'm happy and glad to say that even our Sant Mahapurush are becoming aware of this shortcoming. Even they are questioning the Sikh Panth. They are asking you and me, kithe gaye tusi? Continue. Okay. Not brought it out into the sun, into the daylight. The splendid doctrines of this religion, which has come into existence for the benefit of entire mankind. And by entire mankind, is entire mankind the 30 million who are living in Punjab? 50 years after this man has said all these words, first of all, even the 30 million do not even know about the existence of these words, except for the few people who go onto the internet and have seen this text before. Okay, and then he continues. This, he is referring to the Sikhs, this is their greatest sin. This is their greatest sin, and the Sikhs cannot be excused from it. Now, a comment that further appears. What Bertrand Russell was most disappointed with Sikhs was that they do not have a doctrine of preaching to the world. They do not have a doctrine of preaching to the world. You go and look at all the books that have been written on Sikhi. They are meant for Sikhs only. No other outsider will read the way our books are written. They are so poorly written, they are totally uninviting to any other person who is not a Sikh. There was one case in my own life where a colleague of mine during a flight, I was that time junior co-pilot and he was a captain, and he said, Sukhdev, I would like to know something about your religion. Can you give me a book? And he was a Christian. And so I came home and I found this book by Duncan Greenleaf. Some of you might know about Duncan Greenleaf. So I thought, Duncan Greenleaf, this guy is a Christian guy who has written about Sikhi. I took that book and gave it to him. 1 month later, I found that book lying in my pigeonhole. We have all pilots have pigeonhole to pass our messages and companies' messages to us. These are good old days I'm talking about, before internet and whatever. I found it lying there with a note. Sukhdev, I couldn't make head or tail out of this book. Thank you very much. And that was the end of that. And this is how our books are written. You go and pick up any book on which has been written. It's written for Indians, for Punjabi Sikh Indians. No other person, I think, unless he's a scholar or a researcher or what, will ever touch that book. They are written in that way. They are written by a scientist. They are written by an engineer. They are written by a very technical person, and there's hardly any life in there, just facts and dry facts. Okay, now, so to conclude on Bertrand Russell, he felt strongly, I better show it to you. He felt strongly that Sikhs should go out and spread their great faith to the world. So that is what Bertrand Russell had to say. So where lies our problem? We are 500 years old. In my next serial, I will be showing you some diagrams They might shock you, but that's what I intend to do. Before I end today's session, I want to tell you something that has been mentioned by Osho Rajneesh. Very brilliantly, he describes our situation. He wasn't referring to Sikh religion. He was talking generally about all the religions that existed, the four major religions that have existed before us. He describes the situation like that. When a child is born, the mother makes certain clothes for the child. Then one day the child grows up. And up and up and up, and becomes an adult. Many decades later, 10 years, 20 years later, is a full grown person. What would you say? What would you say if people still tried to fit that same little garment that was made for that child when that child was born and he was an infant? Now you are trying to fit that same garment onto this full grown man or person. What would you call a person who is trying to do that? Is it even possible? He was of course referring to Hinduism 10,000 years ago. But today they are still trying to do the things what was preached 10,000 years ago. Then he's referring to Buddhism, Christianity 2,000 years ago. And Islam, of course, is the classic case where 1,500 years ago, there were certain cultural things that they were doing, but today they are still trying to follow that same cultural things that were being practiced 1,500 years ago. Do you think that is going to work? Can you make a grown-up adult wear the infant clothes when the child was an infant? Can we today enforce and implement the same things that were implemented when Sikhi was an infant? Before I end today's session, I want you to meditate. Is the Sikhi that you are being fed today and conditioned since the day you were born to believe that this is Sikhi, me included? I already told you that, but since when I took my Amrit, what process I went through. It was only in the mid-90s that my whole world went into turmoil when I started to realize this doesn't make any sense. And for the last 25 years, I have struggled to reach out to people and to spread the message that this is a dead end. This is a dead end. Open your eyes and look at your results. Look at the Amrit Sanchars today that you all are trying to have. 5%, 3%, 8%. If you can get 15% out of a huge crowd to take Amrit, you have done very, very well. Where lies the problem? Early last year, they had to cancel an Amrit Sanchar, which was broadcast almost throughout half the country. Only one person turned up to take Amrit. Panj Pyare and one Ablaki. There is nothing wrong with the Amrita. Let me be very, very clear. The Panj Pyare are sacred. The Amrit is sacred and divine. It is our understanding of it. How this understanding has become removed. What was the Khalsa supposed to be? What was the Sikh supposed to be? The Sikh was the Sikh. The Khalsa was the crown. The Sikh was the Sikh. The Khalsa was the crown. The Khalsa is the chosen. The Khalsa is the elevated. This relationship we are going to, where has this disconnect taken place? Why do we find ourselves today in a scenario where one person showed up for the Amrit Sanchar? The Amrit Sanchar had to be cancelled. The poor person had to be told, you please wait for the next Amrit Sanchar which will be conducted in so and so town. You come over there and take your Amrit there. And this is the reality. Let anyone deny this. We are just pulling wool over our own eyes until and unless we start to understand, to differentiate what is Sikhi from what is Khalsa. Until we can do this, until we can set the clock back and go back and undo the certain steps that were taken in the last 100 years, since this confusion was introduced into our Panth. Prior to this, there was no confusion. This confusion only started with the events of the last century. Before that, during the time of our gurus, people were lining up. People were lining up to be initiated into Sikhi. I'm going to invite you to read Tajuddin's diaries. I just discovered, somebody had sent it to me some time back. You might have heard of Tajuddin's diaries. I will be talking about Tajuddin's diaries. Tajuddin's diaries record that almost half of Makkah was converted to Sikhi by Guru Nanak. How? You have to read Tajuddin's diaries to be able to relate to the message of Guru Nanak. What did he preach and what have we made Sikhi? As Rajneesh said, after the master is gone, the master comes there. The masters come to preach dharma to us, and dharma is for us to turn inward. Dharma is for you and me to turn inward, to learn, to understand the journey inward to our souls. But after the masters are gone, due to lack of understanding or shallow understanding, what do the disciples and followers do? They turn outward. They create forms, they create rituals, they create ceremonies. That is the only way they can seem to get a handle on things, to get a grasp of things. The inward journey is lost completely. And then the funny part is that thousands of years later, they are still trying to put on that little infant little shirt onto this 2000-year-old gentleman, without giving any consideration. No, no, no. That is how it was done by the gurus, by the masters, by the teachers, by the prophet. It will be done like that. Otherwise, you are not a part of our religion. You are an apostate. You are excommunicated. You are this, you are that. And before I end, I also want you to go and look up this gentleman, Dr. Harbanslal. Dr. Harbanslal, one of the most remarkable Sikhs of today. Dr. Harbanslal, and be prepared for a little surprise when you see his picture. I will be introducing him probably in one session. One of the reasons why there has been this 1 month gap is because this episode that I am about to undertake is very, very complex. It's very, very complex. I don't know where to begin. I don't know where it will end. It has so many different bits and pieces and segments, so many points that I need to raise. I need your cooperation and your support to give time to think about it. No matter how complex the situation is, think about the words, whatever that the thoughts that I'm going to share with you. The Panth need to look for answers. The Panth doesn't belong to me, it doesn't belong to you. We are all temporary on this earth. We are on our short little journeys. We will come and we will go. The Panth needs to grow. The signs of this growth are everywhere around us. This 550th anniversary of Guru Nanak Dev Ji has literally fired up humanity. So much of opportunity has been created by the 550th anniversary, but we need to go back and unravel one thread by one thread, one thread by one thread, so that we can go back to the source and recreate that environment of our Guru's times, where Hindu, Muslim and Sikh could sit together in the same darbar, in the same divan and consider themselves to be Sikh. With that, I end today's session. After this, I will be attaching some videos. Please watch them from beginning to end. Beginning to end, no matter what, because they are going to be very critical in the coming discussions that I am going to be putting forward to you. Thank you, Ji. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.